The brand is a territory in the mind. It's a perception that exists in the hearts and minds of your most valuable customers. It's not a tangible thing.
Hi, I'm Daniel V Melo, an avid reader and a never stop learning kind of person. Many powerful frameworks and innovative tools are trapped behind the language. There are so many books that haven't been published yet in Portuguese or Spanish. And I see a lot of people talking about concepts that were written in another type of environment. So what I'm trying to do is to bring these new ideas to the Portuguese and Spanish audiences, and whenever it's possible through the authors themselves. So today I'm with Mr. Peter Wilken, widely known as the father of the brand DNA and the author of the Some Strategy, a practical book that I already start using with my students. So Peter gently agreed to record our interview, but we decided to do something innovative. We are dubbing this conversation so you, Portuguese speaker and Spanish speaker, can have the own author talking to you in your own language. So thank you, Peter, for being here. It's an honor to having you here and to start this series with you.
It's my honor and pleasure to be here, Daniel, and especially to be your inaugural speaker. What an honor! And I hope the dubbing is good. You know, with Duolingo, people are learning languages really fast, but I'm not that good, I'm afraid, and I don't want to murder Portuguese or Spanish.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so what I'm going to ask you, if you could introduce briefly yourself, especially if you can talk about your wide international experience in brand and positioning, and explain us the core idea of the Some Strategy. This book that for me, as I told you, is a gold mine.
Oh, that's super kind of you. Um, yeah, well, my background was advertising, running big ad agencies. If anyone's watched the Mad Men series on Netflix, that's kind of what I did. My last corporate role was running BBDO Asia Pacific out of Hong Kong. I looked after their 14 markets. Before that, I ran Leo Burnett, Southeast Asia, out of Kuala Lumpur, and I had 11 years with Ogilvy before that in London. I left that to set up my own company in Hong Kong, which turned out to be one of the first specialist brand consulting companies in the world, maybe about 25 years ago, called the Brand Company. And what we had recognized, I set that up with two partners, a fantastic guy who was the top marketing guy for Li Ka-shing and the Young Entrepreneur of the Year for Hong Kong at that time. And what the three of us combined, coming in from different disciplines. One was an out and out marketer, I was an ad man, and the third was an out and out entrepreneur. We had all noticed that millions and millions and millions of dollars were being spent on what we called the superficial packaging of brands, which was the kind of visual identity, the logos, the names, the kind of design side, and to a lesser extent, the communication, the advertising campaigns. Not that that was not important, it is, but not as important as the substance of the brand experience, what your products and services actually do. That is what, imprints in the mind. And that's what, to me, a brand is. A brand is a territory in the mind. It's a perception that exists in the hearts and minds of your most valuable customers. It's not a tangible thing. So we said, we looked at this, and there were tons of strategic models out there, but they were all geared towards the superficial packaging side. This is how you design your campaign. This is what your messaging is at. This is what your logo or visual identity should look like, and not the substance of how organizations were structuring themselves, behaving culturally, or shaping their products and services. And we developed a strategy and an approach called brand-centered management, which is now a trademarked approach, of which the heart of which was the 4Ds process. You've read all about it, the discovery, the definition, the direction, and the delivery. And the real heart of that was the brand DNA development within the definition side. And your brand DNA being, like its genetic counterpart, a template for replicating consistent desired perceptions in the mind through experience. And so we said, if you can get this formula for doing this within your brand DNA and you can replicate it, you can create these compelling, relevant, distinctive, differentiating, and credible promises for your brand. You should be using that to drive everything that your organization does. And that's what your brand DNA does. Your brand DNA is like who you are, what you stand for, to whom and why, and how you go about presenting yourself. The core positioning attributes now, which have become common parlance in brand strategy language, but then were less so. The 4Ds has become really kind of very commonplace. I've seen it replicated in a million different ways, 5Ds, four different Ds, 3Ds, whatever. It's all good. And that's rewarding to see that. And dim sum strategy, to your question, was my finally getting off my backside after procrastinating for like 10 years and writing the book of the story about the brand company and the brand centered management process and how to develop a brand DNA, but do it also in very practical tools that are easy to digest and implement. So it's less academic theory, which we have more than enough of in this over jargony world of brands and marketing, and it feels like it's kind of very noble, worthy, educated academic professors from behind a lectern. But what I really wanted to do was share the practical experience in the field of what we were doing with real clients, real brands that were changing their business in practical ways. And these tools were the ones that our clients were telling us, these are the things that are really effective. This worked for us. This was impressive. And so I shared that in a kind of way like a dim sum meal. And that kind of came from that Asian background. So you
Uh-huh.
can take a little morsel and a small bite and get something meaningful in 5 minutes, or you can eat the whole meal from beginning to end in that structured fashion. And yeah, and that was partly inspired by the younger generation of Gen Zs and millennials that I was working with, who like things short and neatly packed, and then they would dig deep into it themselves. They said, don't give us all of that huge dictionary
Uh-huh.
book. Give us it in small, digestible chunks, and if we like it, we'll go and dig deeper. So that's dim sum strategy, and yeah, hopefully your readers or listeners will enjoy it. It's an audio book form now as well.
For sure. I really enjoying the book and I'm going deep in every tool that you are presenting, trying to explore more. Like you said, you are presenting like the dim sum, and then you can go deeper on every concept. I'm trying to do that right now. So one of the questions I have is many of my students are professionals or small service boutiques,
Yeah.
and they are worried about the personal brand. So I would like if you can give me your thoughts about how can we apply the brand DNA and the concepts in some strategy for personal brand and not only for corporate brand.
No, it's a great question, Daniel. And my answer is pretty simple. I said that the principles of building a personal brand are almost exactly the same as building a product or a commercial brand. Who you are, what you stand for, to what a particular audience, how you're different and meaningful, what you promise them, what your value is, how you go about doing it, and the way in which you express yourself, and delivering that in a consistent, compelling, relevant, and differentiating way, they're exactly the same principles, whether you're doing it for yourself as a human being or for a product or a commercial brand. And the truth is, many commercial and product brands emulate human personality anyway, or try to do that. And if you are a solopreneur or a small business owner, you will realize how much of your own personal feelings and values and beliefs impact the way in which your company is positioned. Names on doors companies, even for, ad agencies, for engineering firms, for lawyers and things like this, they carry your name because they are who you are. So the principles are almost exactly the same, and the process of going through the DNA is exactly the same. The role, it says, is really, why do you exist in this world? Primarily to serve other people. Who are your primary customers? What are your core beliefs? And not just bland ones that we hear from the big corporations, integrity, trustworthiness, search for excellence, quality in everything we do, great places to work for, and with, yeah, 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 they're all kind of hygiene factors now. If you're not doing that, you shouldn't be in business. You mean I was going to work with you because you haven't got integrity? So yes, same thing for a personal brand, but go much, much deeper. What is it that you're really passionate about? You've got Daniel, you've got a huge global experience yourself, having being Argentinian, living in Brazil, worked and lived in Africa, now in America. You're one of the few that you've got multiple language skills, which I wish I had. So you can, think without losing in translation, and that's an enormous gift that many people don't have. So you've got so many unique things about you that make you only you, a passion for sharing, learning, a great avid reader, as you said, experience in the big corporate world as well as working with small professionals. And those things really help. And when you come to shape your brand, those are going to be things that shape your own unique brand of how you deal with it. So I don't know, that's a bit of a long rambling answer to your question, but
No, no, it's perfect. Yeah, I completely agree. And that's why the brand today use the archetypes. The human archetypes are used not only for people, but also for the big corporations. So,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
anyone
yeah,
at all. Maybe I can give you an example, actually. One of the lighthouses, our little online, community for business owners and solopreneurs and aspiring strategists. One of those people has kind of come out of business, is starting his own business in a strategic consulting capacity, in a brand strategy capacity. He's a professional wrestler, and so he's deeply ingrained in him the discipline that is required and the hard work that's required to become a professional wrestler, going into the gym, building up muscle mass, knowing what the key moves, defensive and attack are, having, as he calls, a strong posture to start with, what he stands for. And he's creating a brand all around the discipline and order of being able to follow a process to be able to help his clients develop a brand. So that's a great example, actually, of a
yes,
of,
yeah.
of a boundary crossing between a personal brand and a commercial brand in a small business environment.
I have a last question. As you know, I created Internationale Global Strategy, that is a learning platform that prepares and guides professionals and small service business to go global and operate internationally.
Yeah.
So, in your book, you are talking about the case of Shangri-La when they decided to expand to the US. So, I would like to get some feedback, some takeaways from you about your experience in the context of internationalization.
Yeah, and this is a great example of the power of a brand DNA orienting an entire organization, a global organization. And they may look back at this, and we're talking a long time ago now when this started. Like, it was 20 years since I moved to Canada from Hong Kong, and they were a Hong Kong client that came to us probably just by luck. This is the way the world works. We were seen to be an expatriate or an overseas foreign brand consulting firm when they were Asian, Chinese, and owned and looking to expand into North America. And they thought we would probably know better. Ironically, they were coming into Vancouver, that market. And the owners that were the Kwok Group, and like the big, large family companies, they had many different portfolios. They had Coca-Cola bottling plant interests. They had newspaper interests in the South China Morning Post, and the Shangri-La Hotel was kind of like the jewel in the crown. And for those people who are not familiar with it, it is a 5-stroke 6-star hotel experience in Asia. It's amazing, the Shangri-La, and was very highly respected. But they came to us and they kind of knew that after decades in existence, that the brand needed kind of tidying up a little bit. And the owner themselves described it as a good-looking woman, but approaching middle age and getting her skirts a little long and needing, a relook, a refresh. And they thought that coming into North America, they needed to emulate the kind of feel of the successful hotel brands that they saw. So the Ritz-Carlton's kind of experience, which was very masculine, dark marble, brass, leather, heavy,
Yeah.
masculine and banker type environment. And just doing a short exercise of discovery and definition to help them define their brand DNA within a very short period of time, we knew instinctively what was the case, which was that masculine emulated brand was the complete opposite of what Shangri-La was. Shangri-La was feminine. It was traditional Asian values delivered in a very contemporary way. It was cheongsams, it was tea ceremonies, it was chandeliers, it was respect for tradition, but still modernized. It wasn't old-fashioned, very elegant and refined. And we set out all of these values and said, this is what Shangri-La the experience is, and you need to replicate that. Anybody who is looking for a Shangri-La experience and is a global traveler and coming to North America and doesn't get that will be shocked, and that's what brands build as consistency. And will it not appeal to those people who want the cigar smoking masculine bankers club feel? It won't appeal to them, but that's fine. That's not your audience, let them go. You want the people that you want and that love this kind of experience and fine dining. And of course, that's what they did. And it ended up becoming a kind of guiding beacon, the lighthouse guiding beacon for the expansion of their entire global network. We ended up doing a brand family architecture portfolio that repositioned their four-star hotel traders from Shangri-La and delivered clear boundaries between those brands. And it was a fascinating and long-term project. And still, you can see it in today. I can walk into the Shangri-La downtown and they still got the Shangri-Las and the chandeliers and the elegant Asian artwork. And yeah.
So the message was they had to maintain the essence, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah. But find out, understand who you are. It starts with that, with your personal brand. Really know who you are. You can use this framework to be able to articulate it and discover it. But there's still no substitute, even with all the generative AI tools that you've got at your fingertips now, to actually talking human to human and understanding and interpreting how people perceive you, how they feel about you, what they think about you, what's great, and what other things would they challenge you on. Every one of us have got core strengths in certain areas, and we're not perfect in other areas. All of us think differently. We have different thinking preferences. Some are naturally creative and challenging, strategic thinkers who challenge conventional wisdom. Others are more traditional, much more organized, systematic, logical, rational thinkers. Some of us want research and data. Some are very financially oriented. Some are much more interpersonal and human and empathetic and caring and kindness oriented. And we're all mixtures of all of those, but we can find that out and describe that in ways which really stand us all apart uniquely. Yeah.
Well, that's all for me. I'm really very grateful. Thank you very much for being with me. And you started the series. I hope I can have more authors talking to me and trying to leave this message to all the people in Brazil, in Portugal, in all Latin America that they don't understand, to understand these new concepts and know more about brand positioning, marketing, and sales. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. And I hope this translates well and carries some meaning.
Yeah, I hope it works.
Yeah.